The warmest of warmest welcome back to Beyond the Norm, the first episode of 2025, and kicking off a whole new season of Beyond the Norm. I should never start with the Irish I'm sorry because that is not who I am anymore. That is the people pleaser in me. But allow me to share in a while the story of why this podcast hasn't been on in 25 until now and why I'm back for a brighter and bigger and amazing season ahead. It has been forever and I've missed you guys. And yet it has taken me so long to sit down and be intentional. So, this episode is one that many of you messaged me about. It's who I work with every day, and it is career change in your 40s, including your 50s, including your 30s, including your 60s, and your 70s. It is the premise of it is never too late to step into more purposeful and joyous work. I'm going to share again a little reminder of my story, not too much. I know many of you that have been long-time listeners know so much of my story, but there is many new listeners as well that I will bring up to speed, and also maybe insights into things that I haven't shared before, in particular around what would have happened 2 years ago, just as I left corporate life and started my business Beyond the Norm coaching. So get yourself settled in. I hope this will be a long episode, so maybe it's digested in two parts. It's a drive, it's a long walk, and I hope you get so much out of it. And yeah, take the parts of this podcast that will help you make those defining career choices that really are your calling for right now, right? This is your time. So I really hope you enjoy the episode. I'll be dying to hear what you think. And as always, please subscribe to my podcast. You can watch it on YouTube as well and watch the video on Spotify, as well as give me a follow, a like. That means the world to me as a small podcast producer with a budding and evolving new community. Just any of these likes and shares, you've no idea how much it means to us. And I know many of you are starting out in your own businesses and you know how much it means to you. So I really appreciate and I gratefully receive all those likes and follows and shares and feedback. So enjoy this episode. So it's been a while. It's been a while since I've been back, and I'm delighted to be in the hot seat again. This season, I'm going to have a lot more interviews. I'm going to keep with some of the systemic insights. I know you really appreciate the systemic overview of some of the philosophies that I have learned and I work every day. And it's that idea we'll start with the premise that you are already whole. You don't need to be fixed. You are so resourced, and sometimes our environments hold us back a little and entangle us and allow us not to feel the freedom that we really, really crave. And freedom is my number one value. And it's something, I suppose, this idea of career change at 40. It often comes from that place of freedom to wanting to be yourself more and more. And if you have found purposeful work, or you are on the precipice of stepping into something, I love working with thresholds. And we are in a time of a huge shift in this period of our life. In 2025, we are stepping into something that none of us can explain, but yet we're feeling it. Big things are happening. It feels really uncomfortable. It is unpleasant to be alive in this time. And yet, what's coexisting with it is this sparks and energy and just something exciting that is about to happen. And because you're on this podcast, right? That's why you're here. You find yourself here because you're ready for something different. We're ready to rewrite a whole new story. We do not want to keep replaying old themes and old patterns that are no longer serving us. And I'll start with why I haven't been on the podcast in 2025, because I had one of those patterns appear again. And this is not to shame myself. This is a real open hearted forgiveness, actually, for everything I've been traveling with for the last kind of 3 months or so, or just shy of 3 months. On the 30th of December, I went to get my eyes tested because I had had some blurred vision in the months just around my heart surgery. For many of those that you didn't know, I didn't share that story till December, that I had had some major heart surgery in November, something that was a long time coming and much needed surgery on a heart murmur that I found out that I've had since I was a child. But as a result, my body went into a bit of panic, I would say. I stayed awake for the surgery, which at the time felt really brave. But, there was definitely an edge of stupidity as well. Because, there's a reason why we have anesthetics. It's not to be awake for some of these things. So as a result, yeah, I discovered at the end of the year that I had very swollen optic nerves. And long story short, I have been surrounded with nothing but love and healing from both the public and private sector. I've been really, really blessed, but it meant hospital visits every week for the last 9 weeks. Um, really, from the moment I left Specsavers with a letter to go to A&E, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. And in simultaneous time, it has also transpired that my business has totally and utterly taken off. And it was happening towards the end of December already, which again is exciting and amazing. But there is also that fear of being self employed and being vulnerable. And there is no fall guy in Shay Norma O'Kelly. There is nobody else to pay the mortgage. And so much of what I've discovered, and not to divulge too much into my own health scenario, but I've been diagnosed with something quite rare. Of course, I have. It's something a beyond the norm. Its classic name, and I am laughing because it's resolving and it's improving, and I'm really well. I'm really well again, and I'm really enjoying this newfound time of energy again and vitality, and really taking the impact of having heart surgery and getting another wake up call. And it's not that I needed it or I deserved it or I need any more lessons learned about my health, but certainly it is something that I have never taken for granted, my health, because there's been so many times where I haven't had it. But now I'm well, I'm really well, and I've received a lot of resourcing, a lot of support, both energetically, both Western, both homeopathy, acupuncture, you name it. All my right people have showed up in my life to support these times, and rest, actually. And we're going to talk about that in a career change at 40, where rest is really critical. You don't have the energy of a 20-something-year-old. And if you're a woman, you might be going through hormonal changes as well at the same time. So we have to take these into consideration. And I think I'm so driven by this work. There's been many months in 2024 that I didn't rest enough. In particular, when the retreats took off, I was not stopping and resting enough because I'm so driven. I'm so passionate, and yet I'm recording this podcast again at nighttime. It's really, I am the owl that comes alive at nighttime. So there is something in this story that I will be really realistic on, that I'm not sugarcoating career change at 40. And I was, in fact, 45 when I started my business. It really is the care and how we talk to ourselves. So forgiving myself, forgiveness. And I have an amazing guest who will be on the next episode, when I'll be releasing after this, who talks around the power of forgiveness and forgiving ourselves that I was doing my best as I knew best then, and building in this new way of thinking and feeling as it's okay to rest. And rest is really important for me. And although even right now I'm like surfing on the crest of an energy wave, I also had a really big power nap today, and it's really, really critical to my wellness now. So yeah, I got a fright. It was a tough few weeks, and I didn't share on social, because I really wanted to be out the other side of it, to share and to know that I had to go back inward, and work continued. I was never so well that I had to take to the bed, for days on end or anything. I was able to work away all the time, but I had a lot of hospital appointments, a lot of MRIs, a lot of CT scans, a lot of consultant visits, and yeah, I'm really well now, and I am sure, if you're listening to this and you're concerned about me, be concerned about yourself. And I'm absolutely fine. And I love what I do. I love this work. And now it's time I'm ready to be back in the hot seat of my podcast. I am ready to be authentic and show up as my true self. I'm not anyone else. I'm uniquely me. And to say about you, you are the same. When it comes to a career change at 40 and 50 and 60, it needs to be right for you. Everything needs to be right for you and your family and those that depend on you. That carving out this idea of this, perfect or ideal scenario doesn't exist, right? So it's got to be right now for you and at this very specific time. So, why is this topic, really, really critical? We are in a time of huge change and I've been experiencing it. And maybe I'm marginally ahead of you on the journey, or maybe you are ahead of me. I work with so many people who have been in business, like, even 20 plus years on their own as solo entrepreneurs. I really, really admire them, and who are coming to me now for even marketing mentorship. But I'm not ahead of them. I'm not behind them. We're all on this path and we're all going through something right now. I think if you are not feeling this, shift and change right now, I can't even say you're lucky, because it's there, in the air, that the change is really, really, really obvious, the discomfort of it all. So I'm going to take you through in this first kind of chapter this idea of my story and when I took the leap, because I probably haven't been very specific around kind of what happened in the weeks and months that preceded my actual change. My big change, of course, really, really stems from, even if I go back to 28, at the age of 28, when I was first diagnosed with endometriosis, that for me, and I've shared it on other podcasts, has been, that was a real true catalyst for change and wellness and this desire for strength and wellness. And again, it's my pattern, right? So my mind is really willing, but my heart and my gut body and my womb body wasn't always able to keep up. So I've had to work on balance throughout my life. So definitely the fundamental part of being ill for so long was a huge catalyst for me, knowing that the environments I was in weren't always serving me. And yet, regardless of the environment, how I talk to myself will always be there. So I always have to watch that one too. So after, I suppose, in my 30s and, into my late 30s, and when I started to retrain in coaching, I always knew marketing was not a career that I could have done forever. It was a young person's job, and I would have done an awful lot of event management in kind of the latter years of my career. And that is late nights, long hours. And although I'm not a mother, I have a desire for a bit more balance in my life, and it just was no longer sustainable. And I saw, younger people in my team. I was by far the older and the elder in the team. My mother used to say to me once, "Will you just let the hair go grey?" And I was like, "Mommy, the average age of people I work with is like 25 to 30. I was like, "They think I'm young and I'm playing that ball. Like, I'm going to keep playing that ball for a long time." Um, to be young in marketing, to be full of vitality. So I always knew, I was like, I do really not want to be doing this in my 50s and 60s. And also, I knew after being sick, there's bigger work at play for me. There's something bigger. And this idea that we have 10 to 15 jobs in our lifetime now. Our parents' generation might have had one or two, but certainly we have big career changes. So I've been a marketeer. I will always be a marketeer at heart, but the desire for coaching that came in my 30s. And I also had this, blend of I'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of this portfolio career idea. Brilliant podcast, brilliant book, Squiggly Careers. That's one worth really, really tapping into as well, because it's this idea of, we're not any one thing. We can do lots of different things now. It's not like we're not tied to or having to have loyalty to one company only, and they own us. So that was always coming in my, I suppose, my 30s, and then into my 40s, really, where it really, really, really manifested. And by 40, I was already qualified. In fact, my graduation for a coach was around the same time as my 40th. In fact, I celebrated my 40th with many of, that first ever life and business, diploma that I did, was, yeah, for my 40th. So that was I was on that cusp of that threshold, the excitement of turning 40 and qualifying as a coach. And although my mother was not well, and I suppose I wouldn't have said she was actively dying, but she really wasn't well at the time. That was also in my mind, when you do a coaching course or any course that many of you've done, it's that introspection of what will be my legacy if I'm not having children. And again, that door wasn't fully closed either, even at 40. I was still hopeful. But it was like, well, what's my legacy going to be like if I don't have children? Because I thought legacy was only linked to having children, right? So it was like rewriting the story. A lot of this is not accepting my fate per se, but actively changing my personal reality. And if you think about that word, personal reality, it's personality. What's good and what's, where's the shadow that I'm also including that as well. I'm not perfect. I'd hate to be perfect. Oh my god, how boring that would that be. I'm human, I'm messy, taking all of this along. So when it came to, my mother's death, then the following year, she would have begged me on her deathbed. She knew how unhappy I was. There was a lot of changes. Even there was a whole reorg happening while my mum was dying, and on her deathbed, yeah, she said, like, Norma, when are you going to leave this job? Like, can you leave it? Um, and I never said yes or no, but I think at the time I really made a promise. You know, and I can hear it in my voice. The emotion that would have happened around that time. I'm just going to drink some water. That that yeah, it was really like when you make a promise to somebody on a deathbed, and it wasn't for her, it was for me. Like, she knew that there was something coming. She knew how much I loved the coaching. She's often said, because I used to be coaching internally at the same time, and I was like, you've no idea how many people I've coached now have left the company. She's like, what if they find out that you are the link to all these people leaving? And I was like, look, they just found who they were, and the environment didn't serve them. So they had to move on. She was like, you're going to get be found out. The fear of that generation of, like, you're bold and you're going to be found out. So she knew that I'd found something. So yeah, and I'd taken some time off after she died. And I suppose the years that came after that, and we moved straight into COVID, and a decision just before COVID that I wouldn't become a mother, despite having invested, or just about to have invested, in IVF and not going ahead with it, and then mourning some of that going into COVID alone. And there was something in those COVID years that really, really supported me, because it allowed me to know I was also fearful of working on my own, being really lonely, because again, I live alone. I was like, could I really not have colleagues in the day? Like, I'll miss people. And I had a huge team at that time as well. I managed a really big team, and so much support, people doing stuff for me who were amazing, that I was like, they're better than me at this. I became so reliant on that. And COVID taught me that I was well able to be on my own. And although it wasn't ideal, that if I got out and met people, that in fact that already resourced me, that I was already feeling good in myself, but I could work from home. Like, I didn't need to go to an office. So it really kind of shifted and reframed the opportunities that, God, if I can do this corporate job from home, I could do my own business at home. Like, I wouldn't need, and everything moved online. All my coaching clients that I would have had, both as an internal coach, but also I was starting to coach on the side. Like, it was all online, and I had international clients. I had people in Australia, I had people in America, and like, they were getting the results as well. So I was like, God, this could actually work. Like, I could have an online business. So like, I really am grateful for COVID, for that kind of reframed that the art of the possible started coming in. And then I'm sure, fast forwarding to 2022, and 2021 in particular, where I got sick again and my endometriosis reared its head again, the pattern that reemerged again of my body kind of saying, mm-mm. And really, on my recovery bed post hysterectomy, that was that real start of, like, oh my God, like, I'm not going back to that job. Even when the surgeon told me I had to have a hysterectomy a few months before it was booked in, I cried. And I didn't cry because I had to have a hysterectomy. I cried because I had to do another 12 months in a job that I was really unhappy in. And it was nothing on the company, it was on me. I just had grown out of that job. I'd grown out of being a marketeer. I'd grown out of creating, like, large volume lead flow. That it was just over. So I, yeah, heading into the hysterectomy, I knew I was like, I'm making a vow, that whatever I do next, that is deeply purposeful work, and I have to listen to my heart. So yeah, and they were dark months, and I've shared that before, of recovery, really dark months, where I really was quite unwell, because I went into sudden menopause and I already was quite sick going into the surgery. So yeah, lying on that couch that is behind me, for those that are watching the video, that was like turned into a bed. And it was that couch that's right behind me that both my mother and my godmother gave me money towards when I bought this apartment. I made a vow. I was like, if I come back from this, I'm doing something I absolutely joyously love, and that will give me energy, will give me vitality, and will in turn earn money and be, a source of income and joy for me. Because, ultimately, the practicalities of this, I still have a mortgage, I still have commitments, I still am a daughter and auntie who loves to buy presents. I like the finer things in life. I love to go on holidays. I love learning. I need an income. It's like I'm not so dreaming out of the reality that, joyous work will need to bring in a substantial income. But how could I make this work? So, coming to, the real decision. So I went back after the hysterectomy, after I'd taken a good 6 months for recovery. I went back. I found myself in a lot of deep meditation with Joe Dispenza, which really, really helped me. It helped give me energy and vitality again after the surgery. And I started to dream. I started to dream up possibilities. Um, and his manifestation is a little bit different than what we're seeing on social media. And that is about feeling the feeling now, not putting it out there, not putting it away from us, not putting these goals too far away from us, but actually embodying the feeling of what it will be like to have it now, to have whatever you want now. Think of that one thing you want now, embody that feeling now, not waiting it for tomorrow, not saying I'll start tomorrow or I'll do it then. It's like, can you feel joy in this moment and feel yourself doing the work right now? So when I went back to corporate, it was like, I'm a coach. I'm not a marketeer. I'm a coach. I'm going to be a coach. At every opportunity, if I'm asked about myself and what I do, I'm an internal coach. I'm a team coach. And that's what I do. That is who I am. And I did. I went on like I would be on marketing calls and introduce myself as a coach. And all my headline copies on LinkedIn, it was coach. It was like the marketing was just secondary. And I showed up as that person. Anybody that asked for a call and time with me, I more or less gave it where I could, and the work still got done. The work still got done, but was it bringing me joy? Absolutely not. And I think back, and I dedicate this podcast in honor of, three beautiful souls that died March and April 2023, 2 years ago, and this is March 2025, and it is my dear former colleagues Lorna Begg, Janet Harvey, John Connolly, and my cousin. And there was three tragic deaths that happened one week after the next. Three unbelievable tragic deaths that were, one was known about. I suppose Janet had been sick. Lorna was absolutely sudden, and my cousin, my young cousin, Sean. It's just that idea, and Connor, that like life can end just tomorrow morning, and it's over, and it's done. And I would have spoken to a lot of my healers at the time, and it was like what is going on in the world, like what, like all this tragedy, like how, and you know you're like I'm on the center to all these mad stories, what, like, energetically what's going on here. And it was just a reminder how fragile life is, and that I couldn't put on hold any longer my desire to start this business and this life. And basically that was a catalyst for change, and a lot of things fell out as a result of all of those things happening, that culminated me leaving. I was finished in corporate by the 7th of July that same year. So from March to July it was over, and it was time to go. And it was time to step very bravely, very nervously, um, and say, right, that's it, it's starting. And for many of you that know the story, that then I met somebody a week later, and the whirlwind that was, it was like the minute I stepped into something brave, there was something else waiting for me. And look, at that wasn't to transpire in terms of intimate love, but it was yeah, it was just crazy. Like, it was absolutely nuts that you step and do something brave and courageous, and things are there waiting for you. So but I really, I still had so many fears, and this is the authentic piece. I won't sugarcoat this. Will I fail? Will it be a success? Will, my brother still calls it an experiment? Am I too old? Like, what will people think? And I probably wasn't, I think other people might have that I'm too old fear. I didn't. I think I was more afraid of my money. That's something that comes from my system, from my family system, from the Irish system, from the Catholic system, that am I really worthy of this? And I've even, had discussions with, coaches and systemic coaches, that the money I got from corporate, there was something that I never felt it was mine. Like, everybody was getting it. I never felt I earned it or was worthy of it, even though I worked my ass off. Like, I worked up to director level. I sacrificed so much in my career, to get to that stage in my life. But I never felt the money was mine. And even when I had it, it was often used just like trickled through my fingers, you know. Even though I had it, I spent it and I didn't always save it. Um, but I suppose one good thing I did do in the run up to leaving was meet a financial advisor. And he really, like, he broke it down for me of like what I would need to do, what I would need to save. And it's 6 months of your salary, so that you would have a salary when you started. And also, he worked out like how many clients I would need in a given week to really make it sustainable, and how I could make it work. And now he saw it in very, very like backfill napkin kind of figures, but it was like, again, I had these people that believed in me. They were like, "Oh my God, you'd be amazing at this. You are amazing at this. Like, go for it." And I think that there's a misconception as well. If you're good at something, that the money will come, and that's the part that I will focus on. This is where you do need the help and support from marketing mentors, from business coaches, because how I was a marketeer in my former life is not how I'm a marketeer now for my business. Very different thing, but yet a lot of the skills are there. So the biggest mind shift really that helped me move forward was, I do credit grief as one of my biggest catalysts for change. And there'll be other things, I'm going to share shortly, like why people feel the call for change, in the morning. But like, freedom was another one. I really, really craved, I couldn't do micromanagement anymore. Finished with, a manager that would have micromanaged me, versus other managers that knew if they just allowed me to go and do what I needed to do, that I did it. But the micromanagement in your 40s and 50s and 60s gets really old. And often case, again, you're not bigger than them, but you might have more experience in the subject matter than them, that they've been hired for whatever reason above you. And it's the corporate structure really wasn't serving me as a woman, as the woman I am. The controversial bowled, in Ireland we'd say we're so, Jesus, she's so bowled. But I have a bold streak in me. It's the second child energy, um where I didn't like being told what I had to do, because yeah, there was a bit of like, sure, I know better now than that fella. So there was a bit of that, right? And then there's the freedom. And let me tell you, you can be humbled by that bullshit too, like, I'm not bigger than anybody else. um that was knows better or whatever. But again, I was a subject matter expert in my field, just because I had worked my way up through it, and somebody who had, yeah, stepped in over me didn't, it wasn't. So it was hard to take that, yeah, micromanagement, I'll call it out. um I really had a desire for more meaning. My mother died far too young. She was only 71. She was a fit 71-year-old. Even the tragic deaths, that happened in March. That March, it was just like, no, like, it just, like, there has to be more to life than this. Like, what life is so much more beautiful and profound. And I've had enough suffering, I've had enough loss in my life. It's time for something different. um yeah, and this recurrent stress, the environment was getting to me. And I know I've talked to you about my own health struggles still, and I'm not in the environment. So now I'm looking at the patterns, like, what am I saying to myself? Where am I putting myself? Where are the psychosomatics of, like, the pressure that I put myself on? It doesn't always have to come from the environment. And that's something you have to work with when you're in a self-employed life. um so yeah, like, getting to this next chapter on, like, why people feel called to change after 40. Like, what is in it? What is there for people when, they're feeling stuck? Like, what is happening? So the common reasons, and looking at some of my notes here, the common reasons people seek change in their 40s are, so the desire for more meaning, just as I said. So you can't just clock in and clock out. Like, there has to be more to this. There really, really has. And when we feel kind of robotic or mechanical, or it's the same shit another year, I worked in a place where it was the same events every year. You're like, oh my God, it's just the same shit another year with just a few different people who we have to talk them through how this works. And just the repetitive nature of it, like, it's just soul destroying. Like, you're just like, really? And that really got to me, I know, in the end. Um, Burnout and stress. You've given too much and you've not received. You've not been acknowledged. You've not been thanked. And this is not always about money. This is about, I worked with a client recently who was in recognition programs. Like, that was her whole job, to recognize people. And her senior peers, her senior leadership team had never thanked her in years. They never had said, thank you for what you've done. Of course, she's getting a salary. And, the older generation were like, but you're getting paid. Honestly, the most minimum of thank you for your contribution and what you've done, like, in particular as women, we need to be acknowledged, because a lot of our programming in our lives and the different roles we've played, whether that's daughter, sister, aunt, mother, is that we don't get recognition in those roles. So when we come to work, it's kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back, because we've given so much that it really does sustain us. So if you're in leadership listening to this and you have a team, or you're working with people, like, thank them. Like, it just means so much, because that over giving and not being able to receive in whatever way, including, I've spoken about the Irish, even struggling to receive a compliment. This is what leads to burnout. It's a balance of exchange, and I've spoken about it in many of the podcasts before, that over giving. um that work-life balance. And I really, that's obviously the technical term for it. I call it work-life integration, um which is hard when you're when you're self-employed in these first few years, I won't lie. But in corporate life, you really start putting work in its place. That your work isn't everything, and to be defined by your work. And I see that with redundancies. I see that with a lot of my male clients, who they are. I am a CEO, as opposed to I'm in the role of CEO. um, and even I have to say it about my own work as well. I'm in the role of systemic coach, but am I a systemic coach? Have I blurred the lines between who I am and what I do? And that's what happens, in Ireland. One of the first questions when you meet somebody is, what do you do? What do you work at? As opposed to, who are you? Who are you in life? So we blur the lines a lot, because productivity and what we work on is defined by what we do. So, but when that balance is, yeah, totally shifted. And equally the balance the other way, where our life roles become too big, where we see that at the change again in the 40s and 50s and 60s now, even as the older we are being mothers, that who am I when the children leave home? The empty nest syndrome. So who we are versus what we do. And really getting to the crux of the soul work for me is like, who are you? Strip all of this work away. Strip it all. Like, who are you at your very essence? So the one, and it's the one I speak most often about, it's the big life changes. So divorce, huge catalyst for change. I see it in my whole thing. Buying a house. I would have a lot of clients that they've just bought, or they're just buying a house, and then they're like, I've got the mortgage now and I can't do this job for another second. I need something big. Illness. I am exhibit A on this one. Being sick, because you have time to reflect. Grief, and grief in all its forms, not just the loss of, you know, parents or siblings or any of that. It's all the other griefs as well. It's like, for me, oh my God, the loss of my puppy, that I shared with my brother Ali, like, such a big thing as well. That also happened actually around the same time as Janet and Lorna, my cousin, dying. That, like, honestly, it was, yeah, like, those things, any form of grief, is a real trigger for change. Becoming a parent, right? All these things are just shifting that perspective. um But one of the things why people really feel the call to change, and we can't sugarcoat this, is the financial considerations. You know, we want to be more than just in survival mode. We want to have something more, like it's this idea of, can we thrive? Can we be in a work that would allow us to thrive, that make room for that thriving people? I had a client last week and it was lovely, and she had on a post-it like, peace is the new luxury. And we sat with that for a while, because I said, okay, peace is a lovely luxury, but can we frame the question about you? Like, or the sentence is like, I can create my own peace. I am at peace when I breathe. Because although the statement is lovely, peace is the new luxury. How can we bring that closer and embody it? I have 3 alarms set in the day, and they're all to remind me of what it be feel like to be loved right now. And I say intimate love. I call that out. Um, and feel abundance in my body. How can I create pockets of my day where I want to feel the feelings? It's this idea again, the word manifesting. I want a new word, willing it in. Um, and that really, 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 like it, that key thing. Set your alarm a few times a day, whatever feeling you're not having now but you want more of. One of my word of 2025, because it's my first podcast of 2025 that I haven't shared, is ease. I want more ease in my life. It's not that I want it easy, even though that would be great for it all to come easy. Is I want to feel more ease within my body. My body wants more ease, very similar to peace. But I have to crave out time where I feel at ease with myself, with my work, with my life, with my body. Um, and it really is those 9 weeks that I've been sitting in long waiting rooms. Like, I had a lot of time, and how could I feel at ease even in those environments? Hospital settings environmentally are really tough. I spent a substantial amount of time in MRI machines, which is very constricted. And I really had to, my breath has been, I'm back to nearly daily breathwork practice. Um, and I had omitted that. I was doing mini breathwork practices. Now I'm much longer, much more substantial. I'm back doing my Joe Dispenza meditations, and it's creating a life of more ease. So it's that idea of, being in survival mode is just not sustainable. It catches up on us, and it's that book, The Body Knows the Score. So moving into, I suppose, a statistic that will sit with you all: 12% of people aged 40 to 44 are actively changing their careers. So what's there? You're not alone. You're not alone in wanting more from your life after 40, whether what age you are, whatever age you are, right? You want more, and you're not alone. So there's communities. I'm building them. There are people there that feel the exact same. And I think that leads into this next chapter of, like, what are the biggest barriers, to a career change in your 40? Like, what are the things really stopping you? And some of them are systemic, because they're environmental, and they're from our families, that familiar feeling. Remember, familiar from the family. So, yeah, what's going on? So, other people's expectations are often stopping us. This was my one. This was my father, my brother, aunties, cousins, even very close friends, of like, what does society think you should do? I came from to a parents of two PAYE workers, so who weren't entrepreneurs, who stepping out of those bounds of being self-employed was really uncomfortable. Now, my mum's family and my father's family were deeply entrepreneurial. You've heard me talk about my grandfather, my mum's side, and my grandfather on my dad's side had their own businesses. But when it came to, we all know what went on in the 70s and 80s, when, times were shitty, including into the early 90s of high interest rates. Having a guaranteed income was everything. So I'm breaking all the rules of belonging in my family to be self-employed. And one of the few, um, I have cousins that are, I have 70 first cousins. Is that my fun fact that you might know? I have 70, I have 70 first cousins. What percentage of them are self-employed? I'd probably say less than 10% out of 70 people. So I'm breaking some rules of belonging by being not the same. But is that anything new? Nope, I've always been different. In fact, I met a mentor of mine today just by absolute coincidence, and I was saying, "Oh, I've been diagnosed with something quite rare." And she goes, "Are we surprised, Norma?" I was like, "No, no, we're not surprised." With a brand name like Beyond the Norm, and I definitely have neurodivergence. There's no doubt. I do not want to be categorized in a box with any of them, but I do know I'm quite neurodivergent. But yeah, so this idea of like breaking rules of belonging for my family, but also I think even leaving corporate life, my peers when I in corporate, and there was a wave of redundancies around the same time, and not that I got a redundancy, but there's the um that idea of like, oh, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to create my own business. Most people would need to have that guaranteed income as well. So, right, it's not out of, and not being able to, yeah, look to the self-employed lens. So yeah, that barriers to changing your career, the weight of other people's expectations for you. And then let's call it out, your own doubts, your own fear. Remember fear, false evidence appearing as real. False evidence appearing as real, but they really feels so bloody real in our bodies, like gripped. And I won't lie, I still have fears. I still wake up worried about money. I still wake up with the like, what the fuck am I doing? This is so scary. How can I even do this? And particularly these last few months with health challenges, with no fall guy, with no plan B, and very limited savings at this stage. Um, it's imposter syndrome. Like, oh my God, I'm starting over. And this one comes up again and again and again with my clients of like, I'm going to have to do another course. I'm not qualified enough. I'm not good enough. I'm going to have to do more. I'm going to have to, invest massively in courses. Did I invest a huge portion of money in my career transformation in the last few years? Yes. What percentage of it did I really need versus, you know, I'd say less than 25% did I need to do? Am I really glad I invested in systemic coaching? Yes, that's that one course. I'm so glad because I have a new lens and a new stance on coaching that many of my peers don't have, and I fecking love it. And it was that was my whole calling in it. Um, was there other courses I did in the last few years that I shouldn't have done? Absolutely, I didn't need to do them. What was I proving? Like I really didn't. Um, and I enough experience to start as a coach, even when I qualified the first time round in my first coach course? Yes. And was I coaching? Yes, I was. I wasn't waiting for perfection. There's a difference between learning and upskilling. And I love learning, right? You've heard me talk about the joy as learning as a huge resource for me. Um, but really, when it comes to you learning, look at like what are you qualified in already? Like I'm sure there is some certificate there, whether it's breath work, being the coach, being, a Reiki master, whatever it is that you've already done, like you can start there. Yes, you can continue to upskill. Yes, you can get supervision, but you don't need any more to start. Like you can start as you are. This is so critical. Like I can't say this one enough. Even those that are choosing not to even create their own businesses, but a career change of some kind to a different industry or something, and like look at your transferable skills. This is a squiggly career idea. Like look at the transferable skills that you have. Like most jobs have like project management. Most jobs have like people management of some kind. So like you're dealing with humans so often in a work context, whether it's corporate, whether it's a small business. It really, like, those skills are massively beneficial in whatever you want to do. You're not going to change, that much to that point. So yeah, checking, like, and that's why you really can do with a coach to help you see all of you. Like, let's look at the skills. I put an offer on Instagram last week, like, to like DM me where you think that you're not enough, and I'm going to tell you. And I'll honestly tell you where you might need to do a course, and that maybe you are just chancing your arm. Oh, I do breath work because I've had my own practice. Maybe you do need one mini weekend course to help support you. Coaching needs a little bit more time. I work with psychotherapists that you need 4 years. There are certain disciplines you absolutely have to train in. But for many others, there is no reason why you can't start tomorrow. Look at like bad example, but like look at somebody like Elon Musk. Oh my God. You know, they like put a wait list and charged $100 each for something they hadn't even ever created. They hadn't even created it, like chancing their arm. And they raised enough capital to build a factory to build the model. Like that's the energy. I'm not talking about Elon Musk's energy, but this energy of just starting now, creating the wait list, creating like what are you waiting for? Like I create wait lists all the time of things I mightn't even do. But I start. Like I start. It's just like who's interested? Great. I have 4 or 5 people, I have 10 people, I have 15 people. It's how I like started the masterclass in marketing recently. It's like, okay, who's on for this? Great. Okay, there's a huge appetite. Shit. Okay. Shit, I have to do this now. Because people wanted it. So like this is like you have to test and test and test. It's like plan fail better, fail better. Like it's not going to work out always. You have to start. And I think that was a part of it. I think I had a conversation with my brother, and particularly around the time maybe Laura and Janet died. And actually, there was another fabulous woman, Katrina, that I ran with years ago that died suddenly as well. And I was like, I was having this conversation with my brother, like quite philosophical at the time, was like, he was like, what would you do differently when you hear, of sudden death? And I was like, I'd start my business. And he was like, well, then what's stopping you? I was like, yeah, it was all my own fears. Wouldn't have enough money. I'd be broke, blah, 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 blah. It was all there. Um, Breaking old patterns, right? This is a huge one. This is the systemic one. This is the juicy one that I love to work with. Career beliefs that you inherited that aren't yours. That you have to work a 9 to 5, or that's the working hours, or I work Monday to Friday and then I have the weekends off, or I must pay my obviously everyone this is my fault. There's only 2 things you have to do in life, like pay your taxes and die. You still pay taxes when you're working for yourself. Boy, do you what. Revenue are my best friends. Especially now charging people VAT. You have these things, but um what are the patterns that, and I heard a coach say this recently, like, are you drinking the same tea as your parents? Are you eating the same meals that you would have ate at home? Like what, like if you're doing that, what other patterns have you taken from home that are no longer serving you around work? That I must stay in a job that I'm unhappy in because that's what my dad did or that's what my mom did. Just because I had to have bills to pay. Like there's some of those patterns that, again, working with a systemic coach, checking them, like what are the ones that are working for you, what are the ones that aren't. Some of them might be absolutely serving you. And then that idea of, reframing the fears that if I don't try this, how will I ever know? And nothing is forever. Nothing. It is an experiment. My brother's not wrong, except my experiment is my absolutely chosen career and livelihood now. So, but if you never try, like if you never tried, how would you know? How would you not know? It's worth trying. And that reframe was just so big for me. Like, I gotta try this. I will not live on my deathbed and know that I didn't try that one thing that I've always wanted to do, that I didn't give it a bash, that I really didn't give it my all. It was okay to rest in it. But that idea of, well, if this is it, if this was the end of my life, and I look back and I use that reframe a lot, like when I'm 70 or 80, will it have mattered that I did this? And I know my 70 and 80-year-old self, please God, I get there, is going to be like, woohoo, go girl, you did it. And even if it didn't work out, it doesn't matter, you tried, I like just not to have regrets. Just before I started this podcast tonight, I heard of an absolutely amazing man that I've met on several occasions with the biggest heart who didn't even get to 60, just dropped dead. And I have a candle lighting here for him, for those that are on video, the beautiful Tim Meany. And like, what is life about if we don't try, and really it's worth the experiment. Nothing is forever. And it's not about going back, but there'll be something else the other side. I don't know if I'm going to have this business forever. I could be back working in a job in a year, 2 years' time. I don't know. Life is going to keep changing and evolving. And I would never say never, because anytime I've ever said ever or never, it's, whatever you focus on grows. So I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if this model of work is going to be sustainable forever. But I have tried and I won't have regretted any of it because I've learned more about myself, about business, about marketing, like I've learned so much, and I'm not even at two. I'm nearly at 2 years. I'll be 2 years in July. So like these are fundamental things that if I'd never tried, I would never have known. So who knows, right? So we're getting into the heart of the podcast now, and we're already 15 minutes in. But these are the steps that are going to really, really help you. And I've already introduced some of them already, so they're not going to be new. So bear with me. So the 7 steps to navigating a career change at 40. The 7 steps to navigating a career change at 40. This is it. Going through those 7 steps. And I'm going to give you some real life examples in the middle of it. Embody the feeling now. It's what I said. Set those alarms a few times a day to take a breath and imagine what it would feel like doing that career change or that dream job that you've always dealt and felt it was for you. I had a woman the other day and I got her to step into what she thought was this dream job. And I also had kind of a wild card. I often ask people to step into this wild card energy and not name it until they've stepped into it. And when it came to the dream job that she stepped into in the constellation, we did the living map that I call that we do in systemic coaching. She got this fizzy feeling in her body already. It was fizzing. It was like fizzy pop, of just excitement. And I was like, okay, that is the feeling. You got to feel some of that every day because it's physics. Like you will this into your life. When you know the feeling, the body is like, oh, I felt this before. I want to have more of it. So it's like me feeling the feeling of embodying like what would it feel like to be truly loved, like truly, truly intimate love. That is the one that my alarm is set for 3 times a day that I just want to feel because I've never really, really, really felt that in a way that felt really equal and really, yeah, just as it should be. So embody the feeling, act as if you already are in this new life. Like, how would you walk if you were doing your dream career? Like walk like you have it already. This is something I would do a lot in kind of some of the deeper like meditations that would be manifesting. Like, really walk as if you're walking in your new life. Go out for a walk now as you listen to the rest of this podcast. Put on the walking shoes. How would you walk if you had it already? How would you walk? How would you hold yourself? What would be different? Embody this feeling. How would you walk into a room that you're about to present and tell your story, excited to share with a whole new audience? How would you be? Be in that now, right now. Don't wait for it. Just embody it now and do that daily. Set your alarms a few times a day. Embody that feeling now. And honoring the version of yourself now, right now. So you've changed. Like you're in a whole new decade. If you're into or heading into your 40s, you're in a whole new decade. You're not who you were in your 20s and your 30s. You get to honor that version of him or her now. Like it is a nod to honoring that version of you. Like truly that version of you that, really, really saw that there was hope and light, you know, and you don't dismiss them. You absolutely send them love and compassion and forgiveness that they were always only doing their best. But now you're ready for something different. That's it. That's it. On to the third step to navigating your career change. Expect to be taken seriously. This isn't a joke. This is serious business. This is you really following your destiny and your desire for change and wanting to maybe help others, or what I talk about, in a healthier systemic lens. This is like how you're going to be useful to others. So you're not starting from scratch. Like you're not fresh out of college. You've lived lots of different things in your life. You could be a consultant in your subject matter expertise. Like you're in your 40s. You have substantial career experience behind you. I was 22 years in corporate by the time I left. 22 years? Like, how did that happen? But I had lived so much. I'd been through redundancies, I'd been through death of colleagues, I lived through like big organizational change. I moved industries, like I worked for several industries. I'd done both sales and marketing in those 22 years. I would expect to be taken seriously. If I and when I do talks in big systemic, big companies now, and I walk in the door and I am taken seriously because I know what it feels like to be the people in front of me, and they can relate to me. Then, like I know what it's like to be them. There is something in that to be taken seriously. And you have been in workplaces, whether that's public, private, you know what it's like to be them. So when you walk in there into those spaces, expect to be taken seriously. I think that's really, really, really important. Fundamentally, know that you are not starting from scratch. You have amazing experience. Listen to your own voice, right? This is the next one. This is number 4. Shut the noise down and make it the sounds and words of what you want. It's kind of like that first point, embodying the feeling. This is similar. It's like, what are you saying to yourself? What is that voice telling you? You can do this, right? When we map this, constellate this new version of you in a living map, in a constellation I do with clients, most of the time their family or a representative for a family or a friend or a loved one or even a pet will say, "You've got this." That's also your voice. There's a part of you that knows you've got this. You can do this. And you got to listen to that voice. This is possible. It's not impossible. The words is I'm possible. It's possible, right? So it is about using those words, like they vibrate differently when you put them out there. So important. And then finding the support. Number 5, find the support. When I started out, it was like, sure, I was a marketeer, I was in sales, I get branding, I'm going to do my own website now, I'm going to get now logo thrown up. Um, and those first few months off, I started, and because I'd already begun coaching, some of the clients came back. I had a few more clients, and it all tipped away quite nicely for those first few months until it didn't. And it was like, oh shit, I can't do this on my own. I can't do this on my own. And I brought in a business coach. I brought in a web guy, and I got proper business coaching, proper supports of people who had gone before me, people who could see all of me and all of my vast experience and my potential, and not only my potential, but what I was currently working on and who my clients were. And we focused in on that. And that is the work that I am now passing on, you know, in the way that I've done it. And this is the idea of mentor coach. I'd really more like for you to listen, like what's going to work for you. But there is the art of telling you how to do it. And I have broken all the rules and did all the wrong things and continue to do them. And I'm still learning. Um, but I couldn't do it on my own. And the day that I, found the guy to Yanis who helped me with my website, name drop, I was just like, oh my God, I don't have to do this piece of shit WordPress anymore. I just can't figure out that is, I'm wasting so much time. I'm wasting so much time trying to figure things out that I could just give to an expert. And also like being caught in the fear loop when I didn't have a business coach, where I just, all I could see was limitations and blocks of like, oh my God, how am I going to make money? How am I going to get some business here? So that really, really, really was a huge change. And also I think that other point, and I've talked about Eva, the Visible Business, her community as well. Like as the time has gone on, I've been going to her stuff from when I started to see my own growth and being like becoming like the mentor to other businesses that were starting was like, oh wow, you know, and other coaches that would have subsequently left corporate that now come to me for business advice or marketing mentorship. You're like, wow, I've already, like, even in these nearly 2 years, like how much I've grown and I can now share with other people. So finding a community. name drop, I have started a Telegram community. It's a one-way street. It's just updates from me, so you don't need to react, but it's things I'm sharing on Telegram that I'm not sharing on social, and it's to start more of a community-based approach. And for now, there is no pressure for you to partake. It's not like WhatsApp where it's bombarded. It's like once, twice a week max. But it is a Telegram channel that I'm opening up, and it's called the Beyond the Norm community. And please drop me a DM. I'd love to have you part of it, wherever you are in the world listening to this. And yeah, it's like building community, building peers, and for you to do the exact same is really important. The next one is the one that you're not expecting me to share, but it is the most critical part of having a career change at 40. And that is the idea of rest is a strategy. Like it is. And the more I rest, it is my fuel to create more energy, to create more business, to create really, really the more substantial part of what I do. So napping is key. Days off, like so much. I wonder why, you know, I found myself with blurred vision at the end of the year after heart surgery, that I'd put such an enormous strain and pressure on myself that I was working 7 days a week. I might have been taking a half day on a Sunday, but there was work in every day. There was no clean weekend where I did not work from a Friday and look at my laptop again till Monday. Like I was so on, always on. Like I worked even the eve before Christmas Eve, where I gave a talk in Limerick. I just was unable to switch off. Like I wasn't switching off. And that really, really backfired on my health. So 2025 and having ease in my life and having rest is a critical part. I my diary, I block book my diary for walks. I try and meet, if somebody wants to meet me for a cuppa, I try and meet it as a walk. So I get out and get some fresh air. I'm walking way more. I'm not doing the gym anymore because of the recent weeks. I'm not unable to lift weights on my head and the pressure that's been on my spine and things, but I'm back walking because my energy is back up. I'm dancing, as many of you seen on social media. And on top of all that, because rest is not just always lying down, I'm meeting people who energize me. I'm also meeting people who have a calming influence on me. Um, and I carve out naps and trying to get to bed earlier. And I'm back reading when I get to bed. So I'm not bringing the phone into the bed with me to read more work stuff on my phone. So all of those things, have really, really helped me. But when you're making a pivotal change, when I left corporate initially, those first few months, I slept. And I know some people have been made redundant recently. And I'm like, look, don't be surprised if you need to rest a lot when you leave a system like you did. So like if you plan to leave your corporate job in the next year or two, like take some time, carve some time out in those transition months where you have enough savings to take a holiday. Like I went to India. Um, that was something I'm really glad I did. And those first few months I rested more than I did in 2024, and it did catch up on me. So this year is more time off. This weekend I absolutely, like, I didn't look at my laptop all weekend. Like I didn't do any work, and it was so lovely. And now I'm so buzzed again on Monday. And I took off this morning. Actually, I rested a bit more, and I met a friend for a walk. And I'm working later tonight. So because I can create my own schedule, right? Like I've no bosses. I don't have an early call in the morning either. So I carve out all these little pockets. I only need to take two true coaching sessions in a day. I might have other mini calls, but um I don't do more than that in a day because I can't. I just can't. It's just not sustainable for my body. When I work retreats, I now take the Monday, if not even half day, and the Tuesday to recover because I work all weekend. So it's all these things. Like burnout is not a badge of honor. Like it really isn't. It is really serious. One good night's sleep is not going to solve burnout. Like burnout is something that is really serious, and it is not something to be proud of working all the time, which many years I would have done. And just rewriting that script in 2025 for me this year is incredibly important. The last one is the one that I've talked so much on in my masterclasses on marketing, and it is take imperfect action. Just start now. Stop waiting for this perfect post, this perfect live, this perfect social proof. Like, honestly, just start. People are willing you on. 99.9% of people are willing you to succeed. The 0.1% that aren't, bullshit, push them aside. They're not your ideal clients. It doesn't matter. And even if they're family members, it's not, you're not pushing them aside. You're like, okay, but like not relevant. People want you to be successful. People are like shining. I work with people who stand in their authentic selves. And the more you are true to that, you don't always need to be polished on camera. In fact, all the algorithms are now seeking out the more normal, the more natural, the less bullshit. TikTok has really helped change the algorithms around that as well, on Instagram, as well as on LinkedIn. You know, this idea of like perfect, or people are watching me, like it's so much of them are fears. It's hard to show up, but what are you waiting for? Like, you are doing a disservice to people who want to work with you if you're not, because they're looking for somebody exactly like you, who's done exactly what they need to see. The social proof that a prospect client said to me today, I admire you because you're still going and you haven't gone back, is what she said. And I'm like, no, I haven't gone back. And how important it is that I keep showing up. And in me showing up, she can see what's possible, right? So that is so important. But progress is the perfection. It's just starting. If I look back on some of the things I posted when I started first, like these lovely little Instagrams that were like, you know, those like lovely, like aesthetically beautiful reels. But they never brought business, you know, whereas now I'm like, my content mightn't be as sexy, but it's helping my business, and I'm moving away. I have no desire to be an influencer. My business exists online. I sell on social. Um, and me showing up, even I show up daily on LinkedIn. There's lots, often case spelling mistakes, even sometimes with the support of ChatGPT, because I add in powerful, normalized, you know, my own anecdotes. But people enjoy the content, right? And they are then reaching out to me, and I am getting work as a result of that. But if I didn't say, oh, I don't, you know, it doesn't mean a lot to me to be brave or be courageous or and just show up, that has, you know, it has really, really just helped me just to show up and take imperfect action. And the great thing about most online things is you can change it. Even when I spell something wrong on my website, I can go in and change it. If I, you know, have a caption that looks awful, I can change it. Somebody said on my masterclass recently, she got up in the middle of the night and deleted a Facebook post because it wasn't sitting with her. And I'd often encourage you not to delete them, because you see the progress then over a period of time, and also you can compare, and there'll be something in that people don't even notice, and if they do, really, that's on them. That is not you. Like, fuck it. People point out spellings. Somebody told me today, maybe we should meet at the library because your spelling is so bad. You have a bit to learn. And I was like, shut up. Like, that's on you. I don't give a shit. You know, like, I'm not perfect. I have neurodivergence. It just doesn't matter. Because the energy and the intention is powerful behind it, you know. So I'll quickly run through them all again. The 7 steps to navigating a career in your 40s and beyond is: embody the feeling, honor this version of yourself, you know, the former versions of yourself and what you're striving for. Expect to be taken seriously. I think that was a huge one. You aren't starting from scratch anymore. Listen to your own voice. Listen to that voice that is telling you, you got this, you can do this. Find support, find community, find peers, find business coaches, find people that can help support you. Rest is a strategy. You have to build in rest time. You cannot work 7 days a week. I am living evidence of that. Take imperfect action. Just start. Just feckin' start. Come on now. Just feckin' start. You don't have to wait. And if you're staying in corporate life and you want to do a side hustle, start today. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be one client the first month. It will build. They will come. By you not showing up, they don't even know it exists. My final chapter in this podcast, as we come in over the hour, is your final piece of encouragement. So, what are the next steps? Right now, you are on the edge of something. You are on a threshold. Something, if it hasn't already begun, maybe you have the business already and you're looking to change it up. I was speaking to a woman today, more consistent income, more predictable income, more being able to plan. She's ready for something different. So we're all on the threshold of something really big right now in this period of time in 2025, whether you listen to this podcast in March, April, May, June, July, right through to the end of the year 2025 and 2026. These are transition years. These are years of huge threshold, huge changes. You are on the precipice of something new, and how you embody the thrill and the excitement of that is really important. It is super important. Transformation and transitions are possible. You know, um, all of what you've done right up until now or beyond is will absolutely stand to you. It's a huge part of your portfolio. It is a huge part of your story, and it is more than a foundation. Like if you were in, whether you're in your late 30s, early 40s, and 50s, listen to this, you're on the fourth floor. You have a better view. You have all those floors beneath you that will stand to you, that you are standing on, right? So you are not starting from scratch. You have substantial experience and you have seen it through your 20s. If you have changed careers or done something different before, you can do it again. Age is irrelevant. Um, I'm leaving you this, and I know there's another coach I know out there in the world, and he says, I will leave this at your feet. So I will leave this in your feet. If all of what I've said has resonated with you, what is your one step to better now? What are you doing next? What is the next action you can do that will prove to your body and your soul and your purpose that what you want to do is meaningful? Are you going to tell somebody else? Maybe you're going to tell somebody else you listen to this podcast and it has inspired you to do something different. Maybe you are going to, share your secret longing with somebody. I shared it with not my last manager, but the manager before. I shared with her. I shared it with two of my manager mentors that I worked with. They always knew I wanted to be a coach. You know, the outer system would have seen it because I showed up as that in work. And I stood and told them, I was like, I want more than marketing. This is the joy. This is the work. This is what I want to be doing. And they were like, we get it. We see you in it. You're amazing. Like you shine brighter when you're in this work. So, you know, you have our support, but we need you to do the work now. I'm like, I'm doing the work now. And I never let them down because I saw that they believed in me. But I know I knew I was there to do a job, and I was in the role of marketing director and the job still needed to be done. So you're not neglecting where you are right now, but you're allowed to talk about it to the right people where you feel safe. It mightn't always be in a work context, but certainly get some allies on your side to really, really, really help support you. And then share those stories, you have worked with people that have really made the transformation, and now they're ready to support you to make the same, especially if you're a coach listening to this. So many, like I have so many client wins of my own that I would love to share, but one of them is one I'm really, really enjoying, and she shared a Google review with me, and she booked 3 sessions with me the end of last year, and she continues to work with me now. And she is the most phenomenal person. And I really hope she listens to this interview, and I hope she hears herself. She was caught in a situation where she had taken a sabbatical or parental leave, and she had written her resignation letter, but she never sent it. Um, and she was caught in this limbo situation. She was never going back, but yet she wasn't moving forward. And I have this program called Attend to Your Ending. And we had these big energetic shifts. She had really, really huge shifts around that time over those the end of last year. And she has gone on to register to do 2 courses that she knew. And this is something that we worked with of, she's ready for some new training. Um, it won't take from the work that she did before, which was in the public sector. That was really purposeful work, but in a sick system, a system that was quite unwell. And she's taking all that experience with her now, and she has gone back studying, and she's also doing some healing courses and with energy, and she is dreaming up what this next reality is. She inspires me something like like I've said that to her, and I don't think she believes me. So if you're listening to this, you know who you are. You are incredible, and there's amazing things that have already begun and will continue to come when you've let go so much of other people's shit that wasn't yours, and you are stepping into this new reality. That I am just so proud of you. And I think you're capable of whatever you want now. When that belief, you know, you keep resourcing yourself for that self-belief. And there, yeah, like she's definitely one of my favorite client stories at the moment, but I have so many others. I have so many others that are, particularly now when I see them in the marketing masterclass, who have come through, you know, this voyage of being with me on, you know, they've done one-to-ones with me, they've come on my retreats, and now they're building their side hustle with a view to creating that as a long term. And it is just like, I am like violently excited for them. You've no idea, like I like, there's so many times that I want some of this more for them than they do, maybe, or myself. But yeah, like I love and respect the people that come to me that are going to stay in corporate, but they're changing to a different industry where there might be more ethics or more values or more value driven businesses, um, or people who move from, you know, like corporate structures into charities. Again, that's a really tough transition, but again, how do they resource themselves? I love those stories as well, because it isn't always, you know, the possibility of creating your own business. I work with tons of people. Half my clients are still very much in corporate. I've few that have made some really, really difficult and are still in some difficult things, but they know they're dreaming up what is on the other side and they're living it now. They're not waiting. They're not being resentful of where they are. They know that it's part of their divine order and plan. Like, those are the ones, like, you've no idea. Like, you can hear it in me. I'm just so excited for them because they are on the precipice of even more magic. And I'm not saying it's always magical. Like, feck me, I've suffered even in 2025 this year for my passion. um, and do I still worry about money? Absolutely. And do I still receive lots of support from business coaches and peers? I absolutely do. So I've not reached the pinnacle. I never will. I had an amazing client said to me last week, Norma, like, I just want to get there. And I'm like, let's look at where the there's you've already gotten to. Like, when you came to me first, let's reflect on your growth already. You didn't even think after the first session, that first there, that first benchmark. So we're all just getting to the next there, and there is no hierarchy of like perfection or where it's all. So, you know, what I one thing I said, you know, I'm really proud I'm not in debt. Like, I've got this far and I'm not in debt. So I've clearly made enough money to live on for the last 2 years. And that will maintain, and there'll be more. And in fact, the more successful I am, the bigger my costs have come in too. And I'm really excited to share over the next 2 weeks. I'm being given an award. So I, you know, like, oh my God, like the the pride I have in myself, but also my clients right now, is in this date and time, is just amazing. And I just love what I do. I love what I do. So yeah, for you, my, you know, my truest appeal is, do not be alone in this. You know, book in a confidence and clarity session with me. They're a one-off, you know, 90-minute session that is deeply systemic, that will help untangle you from some of the things that are keeping you stuck to make these changes. Step into that. And you also have 2 weeks support after. It's just not one-off. There's pre-work, there's post-work, there's post-support in it. And it is such a rich, rich, rich work. And it has been a catalyst for change for so many people over these last, you know, years. You know, I've been working with clients. I've had clients that have come back to me, that when I was an internal coach, or worked with me when I was in the side hustle business, come back to me, and they're constantly growing and evolving, and I love it. DM me and I'll share. There will be a link to the Telegram support in the show notes, but those links expire on Telegram. So drop me a DM or an email, either on Instagram or on email or through my website, to join the Telegram, and let me know, because I'd love to have you there. And then I'd love to know, like, what is your biggest fear right now? You've listened to this podcast. What's that one thing that's still holding you back from making this change now in your 40s, 50s, 60s? What's the thing? What's the thing? Let's just name it. DM me. Let's talk about it. You don't even have to book in a session. Just tell me. I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear the feedback on this um different style of podcast. And I can't wait to share more guests with you in 2025. There's so much more exciting things happening for the Beyond the Norm community this year. There is my next retreat is coming up on the 27th of April. It's one day in Kildare in Ireland. Um, I am so excited. It's going to be, we're working on thresholds again. It's on the threshold of summer. I am will continue to be running a marketing masterclass now once a month. My next one is on March 21st, but I also are sharing the recordings. You can still purchase the recordings after they happen. So again, just drop me a note if there's anything that you can't find. It has been a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for listening to me on this longer episode. And yeah, follow, subscribe, have a check out on YouTube as well, where the video of this goes live. And I'd love to hear what you thought. So thank you so much. That has been the first episode of the 2025 Beyond the Norm podcast. And I can't thank you enough for listening. Please like and share with your friends, anyone that is tired of the same old, and they're on this precipice of change and these thresholds. Please share with them. Please tell me in your comments what you think, and I'd love to hear from you. And I appreciate you so much. And my intention for you, having listened to this podcast, is that it is a catalyst for change for you and a resource that you can listen to again and again. There is also a blog on this very, very topic on my blog post on normaokelly.com. Give me a follow if you aren't already. Norma O'Kelly, Systemic Coach on Instagram, Norma O'Kelly on LinkedIn. Thank you so, so much. You're an absolute pack of feckin' legends, and I love you all, and chat very, very soon.